Hello. So, just a disclaimer, just in case you hear some crying, fussing, or all the things. As you know, I have a village here, so I'm gonna ignore it. Try to ignore it in the background. I'm sorry. But I literally did this take probably, this is my 10th time because they keep asking me things. So, hopefully, everybody is settled and we can get through this video. Fine. But the first video, just jumping right into it, kinetics. I hate saying that word. I do not know how to say it for whatever reason. But 101 correspondent in preschool math. What are 3 to 5 key takeaway points from the video? Okay, so what stood out to me is how the video reinforced the importance of one-on-one correspondence as a foundation, which is something we already use daily in a early childhood setting. I like how it emphasized the kinetics learning, having children physically move while counting, which I've seen to be really effective just on the day-to-day in class. It also highlighted how movement helps children stay organized when counting, especially avoiding skipping or double counting. Another thing that stuck out with me is how the repetition through natural builds accuracy and confidence over time. So just to kind of give a couple of examples of some of the things that I've noticed at work, for like the bigger kids in those classrooms where you have maybe like those 3 to 5s, having that routine of someone setting the table and make sure that they're actually counting the friends. Most of the time when you have a small group table, it's about 8 children at the table, depending on your center. So you want to make sure that they're really gauging themselves. Well, hey, Sarah's not here today, so I don't have to put out 8. I only have to put out 7, and just counting out what they're putting down. So you're putting down 7 forks, 7 spoons, 7 placemats. That is math. And they're able to, they don't realize it's math, but it is, and that's a good way for them to learn. Adding that into like your dramatic play area, you may have it set up as like a little restaurant, so I could come over and I say, hey, well, I just want 1 burger, so they give me 1 burger, and oh, well, 1 ice cream cone, and they give me 1 ice cream cone. And just counting those day-to-day things, like when you're doing your those morning talks and you're going over just your day, how's the weather outside, and then you get to that point where you're saying, well, how many friends are here? So you have that, each person, they come up, put 1 tally mark. That is math, and you're adding it in to a point that they don't even realize that they're learning. So overall, I feel like it confirmed that active hands-on learning is what really makes the concept stick versus just sitting down and you're counting and you're doing little worksheets. They're going to learn more and retain the information when they're actually doing it. So the second part of how does this content apply to teaching of young children with disabilities? So this aligns a lot with what we already know about differentiating instructions. So many children need that movement and hands-on approach to stay engaged. It's especially helpful for children who struggle with attention or processing because it gives them multiple ways to access the skill. Also, you see, this is a strong example of embedding learning where we're teaching natural activities instead of an isolated skill. It really supports meeting children where they are without making the learning feel forced and like a job. You want it to be fun, especially at that age, because if they are having those struggles and not really understanding, it's only going to get worse as they get older. So going into the second video. So my top 5 small group activities for your preschool classroom. Okay, so it's what are 3 to 5 key takeaway from this video. So the video really enforced the value of small group instruction, which I feel like is very important, because that's when you get into like the meat and potatoes of your teaching. I've seen firsthand, it allows for more intentional teaching. I like how using simple materials were used to create meaningful counting experiences without overcomplicating things. So a lot of the things I use for my children are like those little, like the little clear counting little chips and unit cubes, counting bears, things like that. Those are all things that you can use. It also showed how repetition across different activities help children actually understand the concept, not just not them just memorizing it. Another takeaway is how important teacher interaction is. So you want to make sure that you're modeling, prompting, and guiding through the activity. Those were some of the things that she discussed. It confirmed that effective teaching doesn't have to be elaborate, but just intentional. You have to be very, very intentional when it comes to really teaching any math, science, any learning activities. Of course, you want to be intentional, and a way that you do that is by one, paying attention to your children and what their needs are and what's going to support them. What is one thing that you can use to help you better meet the needs of young children with disabilities in your own classroom or professional setting? One thing I would continue to build on is using small groups more intentionally in differentiate instruction. It gives the opportunity to adjust pacing, adding visuals, and simplifying expectations based on the child. So you really, really have to get to know your children and what their needs are. It also allows for more observation, which helps in identifying where additional support is needed. Because you can have a kid who is, phenomenal. They know the ABCs. They're able to identify ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, all of the things, know the numbers, all of the things. But when it comes to that basics of, okay, Johnny, I have 4 chips. Are you going to be able to count those? I have 4 strawberries. Are you going to be able to count those? So just to really continue the learning, you really, really have to get to know your children in your space. The last video, helping young children develop pre-math skills. So the question is, what are 3 to 5 key takeaways from this video? This video highlighted that pre-math skills go beyond counting, which is something we already incorporate through sorting, patterns, and comparing. I appreciated how it emphasized embedding math into your daily routines, because that's where most of the real learning happens. The focus on math language, like more, less, and same, also important, and something we consistently model. So again, like I said, if you're at your dramatic play area and you're like, oh, can I get 1 cheeseburger, but can you add 1 water? Can you add 1 juice? When they're serving themselves, because we have the family style serving, can I get a little bit more green beans? Not as much. Can I get less? Those are the things that you want to kind of incorporate into your everyday. It reinforced that children learn best through hands-on exploration rather than structured worksheets. So just being in it, not just literally sitting down, you're doing a worksheet and you're learning. It's just really hard to retain that when you're doing it every single day. And to me, I feel like children start to develop a not so happy relationship when it comes to school. Overall, it connected well with developmentally appropriate practice, so I really like that. What is one thing you can use to help you better meet the needs of young children with disabilities in your own classroom or professional setting? So again, one thing I would continue to strengthen is being more intentional in embedding math, language, and concepts throughout the day. That is going to be the key. Just making sure that you're using that language daily. And I like that she really emphasized that, because it is very important, especially when you're dealing with children with special needs. Most of the time, you have children who have those special needs who are in a gen ed classroom. So you are not necessarily in a special needs classroom, and you still have to support everyone. Again, your smartest child could struggle with math. They could be very, very well off in when it comes to ELA, but when it gets to the math part, they really struggle with that part. And it could be vice versa. And you have to figure out who your child is so you can support them best. Another thing I would say, the support children. This support children who need repeated exposure in different contexts to fully understand it. And then lastly, it also helps makes learning more meaningful and accessible instead of isolating it. So again, that was just my summarization on the 3 videos. All were really good in breaking down some of the things that you definitely want to add into your classroom setting. These are conversations that I have with my staff a lot, just from some of the things that I've done when I was more in the classroom. But yeah, I liked everything. I hope this was a good summary, and thank you so much. Bye.